Hi, everybody. I'm David Butler, curator of the For Real exhibition, uh, and also a participating artist in the exhibition. I do a lot of stuff. Why did I do the For Real exhibition, Reflections of Black Nostalgia in Black Film? Mostly because I feel like joy is never really like the center of celebration of Blackness during February. I feel like we're often asked to participate in shows that will honor those who have passed on, events that have caused trauma and pain to us as Black people, which is a part of our history. Rarely are we ever asked to celebrate our diasporic history. Rarely are we ever asked to just participate in something that will bring us all joy. So I felt like I wanted to sit in the waves of joy and kind of think about a community experience that we all have. And I think Black film does that for us all. I think that our communal recollection of Black films, like the moments of Black films and the moments that like brought us joy or unified understanding from Black films, it puts us in a position of power because it instantly establishes community in the space. Um, Everybody can often relate to the experiences together and talk about things like, you know, that films are speaking to. So like whether that be like the five heartbeats, people can either talk about Leon as an actor that's always in films that are about Black, like male soul singers, always talk about Robert Townsend and how he was always trying to find a commonality of characters, and often have a positive spin to our experience as Black people. People can talk about like the moment Eddie starts to sing at the talent show and how funny that was and how classic that moment is. And they can also talk about, you know, any other movie that we like have all seen, from Poetic Justice to Last Dragon. Like we all have these shared like kind of one liners, these moments of like intense emotion, moments of pathos that are in the story that we can all connect to and have a shared experience with. And I think that's what gives us the most power, is when we can all collectively participate in that community, even when we are experiencing in our real lives like moments of harm, despair, or just intense complexity. I think that Black film has always reflected the times that we're in, and moments within films. And I think that we kind of get it's a it's a it's a split like thing for me, because sometimes it's not always just Black film. It's like Black moments in film, and then there's like actual Black films that are made by Black creatives that like have brought us all joy. But like most of those films that we participate in are usually from an outsider's perspective, given to Black actors or a Black cast, that we then turn into cultural moments. And so I think about like two things. I think about things like Boys in the Hood was like a a Black film because it had a Black director, a Black writer, and it was speaking to a time in the '90s where things were inherently violent. We had just seen everything from like the Rodney King riots in the early '90s. We had seen gang violence take an uptick, and there was something about that lived experience of Blackness within, you know, Black and brown neighborhoods that we needed to address. We needed to like let people know this is what's going on down here. And then you have like pivotal moments from that where like things like at the end of that movie, Ice Cube says that either they don't know, don't show, or don't care about what's going on in the hood. Like, that had to be said on a national, international scale for white America to hear. And I think you see things like that to where we either take the harm and put it up to American culture as like a mirror to say like, this is what's going on with us. Where do you find yourself in that? What is your opinions on that? How are you going to change it? Um, and then there's things that are like allegories for our lives, like things like Coming to America, where we have this caricatured African experience that's been spoon fed to us from the lens of two white writers and the mind of Eddie Murphy. And, you know, we know for sure that this is not necessarily how diasporic Africans like live or exist. It's the moments in story that kind of allow for that story to exist in the zeitgeist of film as like a classic because the absurdity of it. And I think that we need to make space for both those things, for the, you know, black led projects that have like these like classic lines that are really powerful and immensely impactful for culture. And then we also have to have the absurdity of joy, the absurdity of story. And I think that we're missing a little bit of that balance nowadays in our films. Yeah, and I think that that's the fun part about the show is like we're not necessarily trying to answer the question like what is black film, because really it's like any film that has a black person in it can inherently be a black film, because if the moment to us is like so incredibly classic, it doesn't matter what happens in the rest of the film. Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction like makes the story for us. Like none of us really have seen the entirety of Pulp Fiction, but we can recite like lines like "say yes again, motherfucker," like, you know, like that's like what you hear in your head when you think of Pulp Fiction is that opening scene, because that's the clip that they use to promote, showcase. It's always got Samuel L. Jackson in it. So in our minds, some of us even think of that as a black film. But then like you got films like Sinners that when they are inherently black, when they are inherently driven by black writers, black creators, black people behind the camera, black brown people on the staff running the film, the story hits different because you know all of that is happening at the same time. And I also think about Coogler's like Black Panther, like the moment that we had in what 2018. We all got dressed to the nines to go to the theater to watch Black Panther because it was just this cultural moment. It was just a feeling that you get that you can share in that communal experience. And we know that this is for a big white company of Disney, and its story, this character was not created by a black man. For the, you know, Black Panther as a character was created by a white man, you know. But so through the through line of blackness and from its inception of the character, it just shows us that like how powerful our presence is on screen, how powerful our presence is when we collectively come together and support like people's roles and stuff. You know, sometimes we can steal the show, and that's why it becomes black film, because the moments that we're in it, like, you know, just are unforgettable. Viola Davis won her Best Supporting Actress Oscar for being in the movie Doubt with Meryl Streep. The exchange she has with Meryl Streep in that movie is like 7 or 8 minutes in the entire film. And but it's her intense dramatic performance that hit people so hard. So in my eyes, like that moment, it's a classic moment in film just in general. But you know, and her blackness inherently in it, and her reaction as a black mother in that film to that storyline, it's very intense, and it allows for you to kind of participate, you know, beyond the fact that you've been watching like this very dramatic, like white storyline movie. So I'm just hoping that people are able to kind of not only see things and kind of get relative feelings of nostalgia, but also kind of think about like reflections on why certain images are in front of them. Some of the things are not extreme like representations of what you saw on film. Some of it is just people's feelings that they got that they're trying to portray from actually seeing a series of movies. Some people are reflecting on short films, documentaries. Some people are reflecting on genres of movies that not everybody participates in. But it's all kind of has this feeling of joy that you feel when you're experiencing film. It has the curiosity that you have when you're seeing a film for the first time. If you're walking around, you're kind of curious of like where their connections are, why things look the way they do. what representations, like you kind of wonder where the artist's mindset is. And I think that allows for you to have a good experience while you're walking around the show. And that's the goal. You don't want it to kind of be on the nose all the time. We have a few of those pieces, and like you see the face or you see the moment of the scene, you're like, oh, that's this movie, that's that movie. But also, there's a few pieces you're like, oh, I wonder where this came from. It kind of reminds me of blah blah blah, and like that point of reflection, that point of like conversation is what drives like the motivations for the show. Is because I want you to kind of inquire about the work. It's just same way like you inquire about a trailer of a movie that you've never seen before or hear about. Yeah, before Meteor Man, we didn't. All of our heroes kind of existed in those other movies, right? Like, so we find like that through the fog of all this curated fodder that you get from the film industry, where you get like the dad in Boys in the Hood, the father in South Central. Like it's always like these father figures, these mentors that are kind of super in their like confidence. But you didn't really have like that superhero aspect until after you saw Meteor Man pop onto the scene. You didn't imagine how powerful you could be until that movie came on the scene. The collective of all the artists was intentional. With every curatorial like pursuit of mine, I always try to give like a bit of a blurb to kind of pitch the show to different artists. And each of these artists I know, like I've seen how in their previous work, how they've engaged with like story, narrative, and how they've portrayed like their work with like different ideas. Some folks were very like newer in their experience, like showcasing visual work, and and they didn't feel like they had techniques that like other like mid-career artists have. Some people are fresh out of school or still students, and then like you have people that are just like inexperienced in the gallery space, like but maybe they are a musician or a filmmaker by trade. And I thought that just having those different minds is just being able to have conversations with with these artists and see how they've reflected on work before. I knew that if I got all these different minds in the same creative pursuit, that it would produce like a lot of cool work in the space. And even if like it doesn't always make sense to the viewer, I know for me it's the fact that if you were to look at the work, you see that it's dope, and you see that like and you start to research the artists that made it, you can start to like build your own kind of narrative out of the show experience itself and be like, okay, this just made me feel good as a whole. Like I walked through here and I felt like I was represented. I walked through here and I felt empowered. I walked through here and I felt like really reflective in my own thoughts, and it gave me the pause that I needed for my life. And I think that's what we all try to intend to do with most of the works that we produce. I think it could be all three. I think right now we need to reclaim our joy intentionally in the world that's like actively trying to silence us, in a world that's actually trying to kill our creative pursuits. America is trying to take away everything: your joy, your creativity, your time, your motivation. They're trying to take it all away to keep you in a submissive state submissive to the state, actually. So like you have to actively wake up every single day and claim joy as a thing. You have to say like, I want to be happy today. I'm going to, whether it's doom scroll on my phone, I'm going to watch this movie today, I'm going to watch this TV show, I'm going to eat this snack. Like, you have to actually go out and pursue the things that bring you good feelings and endorphins in your body. And I think that's a good part of the show. I think that nostalgia as resistance has always been our strength, because we are the stories that we tell. So like, if we keep engaging in this narrative practice of telling stories, of sharing our experiences, reflecting on the fact that we have a lot of shared experiences that go beyond traumas, that go beyond harms done to us, that we have like very complicated stories at times, but also very simple and absurd stories that happen to us that we can all unify and like talk about. We kind of long for that originality. We long for those like powerful, like guttural laughs a lot. We long for like those intense, dramatic moments, like you know, everybody's looking, everybody sits at a dinner table, starts laughing like Oprah, talking about sat in that jail. You can have a universal experience with that. You can participate in like all the things from that we reflect on through nostalgia, and have a kinship that is formed out of it. And I think that there's power in doing all of that and in reclaiming our joys and sharing our story, and for longing for betterment when it comes to our creative practice. And hopefully, this exhibition does some small point of reflection for viewers to think like, okay, which one of these things am I not doing? You know, and can I participate in that more? Yeah, I want people to know that like the pursuit for this is just a small sampling of it. Like we could do like 20 different versions of the For Real exhibition, like, from, black film to black TV to black writing, black theater. Like we have participated in every, you know, portion of creative praxis out in the world. There's a million things that we can reflect on and have nostalgia for and inform, future generations about. A lot of this is like less about like thinking about the past, but also showcasing to a newer generation why this is important to us. Our archive is important. So, and art can be a part of the archive as well, whether we're writing about it, making pictures about it. We've been doing this forever. Like everybody follows an artist right now on Instagram or TikTok that makes work that is solely about reflecting on like the 90s, or like this person draws like TV shows and couples from the 90s. This person over here does all kinds of fake movie posters, and we go and we give them the likes because we want that feeling. We want to see those images coming for us and fill out that void that like sits in us all the time for all this stuff. And I think that's the job of this exhibition, is to try to, for a moment, fill that void that gets left open far too often. When are we doing the sequel? I don't usually like to do like many like exhibition sequels, but I think that there's a way to kind of scale and expand this idea of the in real life experience that we have with our popular culture. Like, so, maybe there's a different variances of For Real that we can do, like I was saying, with like all kinds of like, the Black entertainment archive that we all experience, from music to television to all of it. We have a plethora of options to do a variant of this exhibition. So, maybe we'll see what happens down the line of if people want to actually participate in it over and over again. Maybe it can be a regular thing. I have so many ideas for shows like written down, and also just like sitting in my memory bank. I always just try to like find the one that fits the moment. And I feel like if somebody gives me a date and a time and I think about what's going on in the world, I usually can pair it with an idea that I have kind of sitting around. I love to do shows like this within the community because it keeps me grounded and doesn't have to be like always above brow when it comes to the engagement with the community. It's instantly accessible because it's something that we universally share and talk about. And I just love doing shows like this. So whenever I get an opportunity to do it, what's an idea that's kind of been sitting around I haven't been able to do yet. I have so many ideas. I just wish I had four walls all the time to execute them.